All right, today we have an 05 Acura MDX 3.5 liter, and we're going to do a timing belt on it. So first thing we do is there's a big cover that covers up this area. It's got 4 bolts. Take the 4 bolts off, get that out of the way. So what I usually do on this car, this is the power steering pump. There's the power steering reservoir. We're going to suck all the fluid out. We're going to disconnect the return hose here, the return hose here. So then when I get the power steering pump up, I can lift the power steering pump and just set it out of my way without oil leaking all over the place. We also have to get this mount out down here. We're going to have to remove this computer. We have to remove this computer, the bracket, to get down there to get that mount. Once we get that mount out, the power steering pump out, then we can go to the covers. We got to get the belt off. The tensioner and the idler will have to come off. So let me get in here and start getting this stuff apart, and I'll come back. So before I pull off any belts on these cars, I always write myself a map. This is the crank, that's the AC, and I put all the pulleys in, and I do a diagram of which way the belt goes. So when you take the belt off, it's going to be a couple hours before I put this belt back on, so at least I know the routing of the belt, since this one does not have a map made on the car underneath the hood. Alrighty, as you can see, I've got the power steering pump out of the way. I had to take the pulley off to get to the lower bolt on the power steering. Got that up out of the way. I got the ECM out of the way, unplugged. I took some of the brackets down here out of the way. I got the bracket, the front motor mount out of the way. I did bend this forward a little bit to get to that bolt, but that is out of the way. So now I have to work on this. There's 2 bolts. There's one here, there's one below. We have to get the tensioner off. So we'll put it up in the air and start working from underneath. All right, well, underneath the car now, we had to remove this shield and push it out of the way. And I went ahead and got this wheel well out of the way because it's blocking this area. We got to get up there and get that bolt out, pull this off, pull the tensioner, that idler, and the crank pulley, and then we're down. Basically, then we'll be down to the covers that hold the timing belt on, and we'll have to put it in time. All right, so here's a problem that the MDXs and the Hondas have. Is this is the crank bolt. So we're going to try it with a regular 19mm socket, and it won't budge. So they make this other socket. It is a Ingersoll Rand power socket that has a flywheel built into it. So let's put that up there and see. Same gun. Let's see if the power socket will break the crank bolt loose with this extra flywheel attachment. And it failed, but hold on, we have another one. Let's try another socket that we have that is supposed to work on these. If I can find it. What did he do with the other socket? So we finally found it. So here's the new socket. This is a Matco Harmonic balancer socket. See how thick it is? So let's see if this one will break it free. And the Matco extra thick socket broke it free. The Ingersoll Rand one apparently did not work. All right, thank you guys for watching. All right. After you get the harmonic balancer bolt out, then you have to pry the harmonic balancer out. Once you get the harmonic balancer out of here, right up here, this is where the belt tensioner was. It's got 1 bolt at the bottom, and it's got 1 bolt that slides through the whole thing. You have to take the upper bolt out and the lower bolt out, and then the whole thing will come out, turn out. Now I have to pull the covers off, and then we'll go ahead and get the rest of this mount out of the way. So let me get the covers off. All right, now that I have the cover off, there's covers in 3 pieces. 1 piece, another piece there, and another piece there by the cranks. Then I removed the big piece here, which is that motor mount piece. You can see here it is right here. Here's that big motor mount piece. It's got 3 bolts in it. And this goes on before the cover does. And then here are all the bolts for the cover. And then here's another little trick that I like to do. Is this piece here I always forget to put on. before I put the covers on, I always take this piece off and I lay it in this cover. So I know that this piece has got to go in before that cover. So now, I'll remove this piece here to make it easier to get the belt on and off, put it on top dead center and do my markings. So I have to go on the computer and figure out where the timing marks are. So I went ahead and I put the marks on top dead center and lined up everything. So as you can see here, the mark is actually down in here. So I like to mark it up, and I have a paint pen, put an F so I know this is the front cam, and mark it on the engine. I did the same thing on the back cam. I wrote a B and then drew a line and lined it up to where it's supposed to be. Now down on the crank, let's see right down here, on the crank, the mark is actually up here. See that little arrow there, and the arrow in the center of the screen? That's where you line it up. So there's no way really to make a mark on this. So what I do is I go ahead and I do some more paint marks here and here so I know that they're lined up. And I will transfer these marks over to the new belt once I get it off. All right, I moved the marks, I transferred the marks to the new belt. So I had the new belt installed, the new water pump installed, the belt's on. Now what I usually do is I usually go ahead and I crank the motor over twice to make sure that all these marks line up. Now my paint marks won't line up because you have to go so many revolutions around to make the belt line back up. It's some weird formula. I don't understand it, but eventually the marks will line back. The marks that I have painted on the belt eventually will line back up. But for now, I just go two full revolutions of the crank to get the cams, because the cams spin. The crank has to spin twice for every once of the cam. So we spin the crank over twice, and then all the marks should line back up. Not the ones I painted, but the marks on the car. So we're going to do that next to make sure that's good. And if that's all good, then we know we have the belt on right. Then I'll go ahead and I'll put the mount back on here, put all the covers and all the other accessories back on. So here's an overview of how to do a timing belt on an MDX. If you don't know what you're doing, I would not recommend doing this, because if you don't get the belt on right, you could probably destroy the valves and motor. Then you have no car. So I would definitely recommend getting somebody to do this job. All right, everybody, thanks for watching. Please subscribe and give me a thumbs up.